Hi, I'm Danny Glover, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Joburg Today. I'm your host, Leroy Viaggi. The Joburg Art Gallery recently opened its doors to the public, and we attended the Angela Ferreira Art Exhibition to find out more about the gallery's rich history.
What a lot of people don't realize is that JAG actually has the biggest collection of fine arts in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's about 10,000 plus objects. And I mean, to have that in the center of Johannesburg is an absolute gem. This was actually the first gallery which was founded in Johannesburg, and that was in 1915 is when it was built. And it was mostly founded by this mining magnate's wife, Florence Phillips. And I mean, she was a really feisty woman. She went to all of the different mining magnates and got them to donate artworks and money, and then eventually built this collection in this building. One of the problems that the building has always had is the fact that it is quite an imposing structure, and especially because of its kind of colonial history and reference, we have struggled to access certain audiences. So in the 80s we started actually changing our collections policy to focus more on redressing past oversights in terms of artists. So we focus much more on artists of colour now, and even in our exhibitions today our focus is kind of squarely on African artists. This is quite an interesting exhibition for us to sort of reopen with again, considering that we were closed for a restoration audit for the last 3 months. Angela Ferreira's work focuses almost exclusively on architecture and the legacy that architectural buildings kind of leave behind. One of her concerns is also very much about kind of the colonial and buildings as kind of a legacy of a colonial past. So I think what was really fantastic for us for this project was she was actually able to do research and create 3 commissioned works for the gallery about our recent closure and about the histories surrounding the building and even its materials, like the copper, how that gets mined and so on. The objects are very big. These sculptures took about 10 guys to put together, so definitely the size and the scale of some of these works. The gallery needs to be treated as kind of more than a place where you kind of come and are expected to behave a certain way. It's also a place for you to feel safe and to relax as well.
Hi, I'm Lois Mkize, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Be a part of the conversation by liking our Facebook page. That's joburgtoday.tv. Follow the real trend in Joburg on our Twitter account @Joburg Today. Making Africa Work tackles 3 key issues in sub-Saharan Africa: democracy, good governance, and development. Co-author Craig Mills shares more.
Certainly a very interesting mix of co-authors, and I'm sure a mix of ideas and thoughts coming through the book itself. Who are you reaching out to in terms of the African narrative? Who is the target audience?
The big idea behind the book is really sub-Saharan Africa's population is 1 billion people today. It's 2 billion in 2050. We've got 3 decades to get this right. Otherwise, what could be a demographic dividend will be a demographic disaster. 80% of that increase is going to be in our cities. These are going to be sites of great dynamism, potential prosperity, but they could also be real slums of despair and of political unrest and contestation. So it's appealing to a policymaker, opinion former who's interested in what choices we have under our command, within our grasp, and how can we make better choices on policy to ensure that this enormous demographic change is going to be an advantage for Africa. So we're not appealing to other academics, although we would like them, of course, to read the book. We're appealing to people who are facing the real practical challenges of translating ideas into action.
Sure. In the synopsis, you mentioned that Africans should take responsibility, given the jobs and skills deficiencies. Certainly leadership, governance plays a role somewhere in there, but if you could please elaborate.
The international community can't want this more than Africa wants success and development and change. So, and individual Africans can't want this less than governments. So it really is this is a book about empowering the individual and their choices. Of course, it's also a book about democracy. We did a round table with an early draft of the book a year before its publication, and we got peer reviewers from around the world, real experts on the continent, real experts in the policy space on the continent, to discuss it, critique it, give us advice, shred it if necessary, and it was painful at times, but a really good process in improving the product, and making it more appealing to people who say you have to make these decisions. And one of the things that came out from that meeting was really a request, a plea, to draw this link between democracy and development. And so we disaggregated 25 years of African economic activity and development progress by country democratic type. In other words, those that are, if you use Freedom House's classification, free, partly free or unfree, and we show conclusively that the freer the country, the better the development record. They grow faster, they are richer, there's a much better impact of compounding growth, they're less prone to violent economic upheavals or violent political upheavals. It's just better news all round. So in part the book is really about the importance of democracy, the importance of having a democratic playbook around elections and between elections, and the relationship between democracy, governance and development.
Is the idea of neo-colonialism relevant in a new Africa?
Well, of course, it's ultimately about who is in control of these levers of power and authority. We're trying to empower the African policymaker, the African decision maker, the African individual in the process of this book and its findings. We also say very explicitly that it's very important we have to learn the mistakes from the past. We know the inheritance, but it's also very important to look forward. And it's one of the things that distinguishes Southeast Asia from Latin America, this ability to look forward and a little less time spent looking in the rearview mirror, which is fine from a historical perspective, but as Henry Kissinger said, if you want to look in the rearview mirror, that should be the direction you want to head in. We're trying to look out of the windscreen and look forward. So yes, it's relevant in terms of understanding the constraints, but it's less relevant in terms of understanding the options that we have and the fact that this is our continent. We have to make these choices.
Why did you choose to co-author it with Mr. Obasanjo? I'm sure there's a little story attached to that.
Well, he is the chairman of the board of the foundation, but he's more than a figurehead chairman. He's very much hands-on, he's very involved. He and I met just under a decade ago. We met in a passport queue in Sao Paulo and immediately struck up a fantastic relationship and worked very well together. And he infuses sometimes sort of highbrow academic and analytical thinking with really practical, common sense type of actions on the ground. So he's able to fill the middle between sort of translating ideas into action. And I think it makes a good team. The other two co-authors, one of whom is Jeffrey Herbst, with whom I've worked a great deal, who's based in the United States, was a professor at Princeton for many years, and is now the CEO of the museum. He has a great experience in African policy issues, and then a retired British Army general with whom I worked in Afghanistan, and who's an absolute master at taking, again, big ideas and making them into practical actions. And so I think it's a great synergy between four people coming at it from different areas, different levels of experience in the continent, fresh ideas, fresh thinking. And when you write a book together, one of the key things is actually to get on, and we all get on, which has actually been very enjoyable. It's been a very enjoyable experience.
Very inspiring. I can't wait to read the book myself.
I hope that readers, when they do read the book, engage with it, critique it, contest it, but think about these big challenges and think about the solutions that they can offer for these big challenges. So it's less a book about saying this is the way, this is less a blueprint, as it were, for Africa. This is a way of saying we're laying down the challenges, we're laying down our views, okay, come up with a better idea if you have one.
I'm John Terode, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Well, that's it for today's show, but if you want to know more about what's happening in and around Johannesburg, you need to check out our playlist. From me, Leroy, and the guys behind the scenes, till next time.